As a health educator, I have really been interested in the science behind mindfulness. I think that it answers a lot of questions for people that are concerned about whether or not this is a spiritual practice or a religious practice. And I found that by sharing this information with teachers, as well as parents, and even the students, the understanding of the physical benefits really helps people to accept this as something that really can benefit them. Some people don't feel like, well, that's not my thing because I'm not spiritual. That's not what this is about. This is really about your body and your brain and the new science about what we can do to our brains. Very exciting. Why mindfulness? These are the reasons why. I think this is a question that we've probably all been asked at some point. Why are we doing mindfulness? Well, one of the things that you can share with your population is that we have the ability now, we know, by doing a few simple things, we can cause permanent changes in our brain. And these permanent changes from this ancient practice can actually change the way that we feel, we think, and act. And by practicing mindfulness, we create new pathways in the brain. And these are showing up on MRIs. These aren't hypotheses or people guessing at what might be happening. These are on MRIs, clear changes in the brain. Mindfulness is the non-judgmental awareness of experiences in the present moment. And all of those words are very important. Non-judgmental, very important concept in mindfulness, as we'll talk about. Awareness of right now and only what's happening to me right now, and also me. So it is a very important exercise in that we don't have it anywhere else. Where else in your day are you expected to sit and focus only on how you feel? It's not an exercise that we tend to be engaged in very often. The 4 components of mindfulness meditation include the regulation of your attention, the body awareness, your body awareness, self-awareness of how you're experiencing and what that body awareness is telling you, and also regulation of your emotion, which is very critical in mindfulness. With physical changes in the brain, it allows for emotional and physical changes in the body. For instance, I'm sure some of you are aware of the amygdala, and the connection with the amygdala is our emotions. So this is what tells us fight or flight. You've heard that saying where when we're under stress, we have to choose fight or flight. This is where that choice is made. So this is where our emotions, our message to run, our message to fight. So if I'm in a classroom and I see my teacher walk in and I don't have my homework done, this is where I might get the idea to do something really obnoxious so I can get out of the room because I don't want to be caught without my homework. Right? So the amygdala is a very important place for all of us in terms of survival. And for students in a classroom, the idea of survival comes around more often than sometimes we think about. The prefrontal cortex, this is a very important part of the brain. This is where some people call it our CEO, but our logical thinking, our planning, our impulse control, our behavior regulation, this is where a lot of what we want for our students in terms of accomplishments, in terms of maturity, this is where it happens. And then the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is very important. Memory is one piece of the function of the hippocampus, but it's also self-awareness, connecting myself to other experiences, and really having a sense of being part of or belonging. So that when you think about my amygdala and how if my alarm sounds, what is going to happen is that my alarm sounds, this is going to say, okay, I'm done. I'm shutting down now because you're in charge. The amygdala can shut the prefrontal cortex down. So now my rational thinking, my impulse control, my planning says, okay, the amygdala is in charge. And so you have all of this emotion and all that rational thinking isn't available. The hippocampus, I forget. How often have you had a student say, I did study, I just couldn't remember it. I don't know what happened to it. Where did it go? Their anxiety took over, and the amygdala took over, and everything else shut down. So it's and we see this professionally when we're working. You know, you can see when if you've had an issue on the way to work, what you feel like when you walk in your own classroom, or if there's something going on in your personal life, how hard it is to get back here when your own emotions are at a very high level. So this doesn't just apply to students, and this is why mindfulness is in every aspect of our lives now. If you check it, any professional organization is almost guaranteed to be offering some component of mindfulness or recommending it. So with the amygdala is the brain's fight or flight center. It is where we experience fear and intense emotion. It gets smaller through the practice of mindfulness. It physically gets smaller. So what does that mean? It means that the amygdala's ability to hijack the prefrontal cortex is reduced. And how does that work? The connection between the amygdala and the rest of the brain gets weaker with the practice of mindfulness, while the connections between the areas, between the areas associated with attention and concentration get stronger. So what's happening as I'm practicing mindfulness, the experience of going into myself, being aware of how I feel, how I'm breathing, actually decreases the size of the amygdala, so I don't feel that anxiety that hijacks my prefrontal cortex, but the gray matter in my prefrontal cortex is getting thicker. So that's good, right? The prefrontal cortex is associated with higher order brain functions, my awareness, my concentration, my decision making, and this becomes thicker as the amygdala gets smaller. And then we have the hippocampus. This is the site of self-awareness. Sometimes we say, well, when they get a little bit older, they'll be better at this. It's true, but also we can help them. We can help students. We can help ourselves become more aware of ourselves. The experience of compassion. This is in a lot of literature now, teaching students how to be empathetic, how to be compassionate. How do we do that? This is where it lives. So addressing the hippocampus is really beneficial for a lot of reasons. Introspection memory. This quote is from a movie called Secrets, and the quote is, what you think about and what you think about, you bring about. A thought creates a feeling creates a thought. So, not to play on words, but it's a snowball effect. And so when you have good thoughts, I'm going to ask you right now to think about something, sitting in this chair right now, think about something that you're grateful for. I'm not going to ask you to share. So something that you're grateful for. Is there an experience in your body that's negative? Or do you experience that thought as positive? Anybody want to say if they feel negative or positive? You're thinking about something positive, so of course your experience is positive. Well, eventually what happens in our body is the feeling of positive is going to lead me to another positive thought. And then a positive thought's going to lead me to another positive feeling. So with the experience of gratitude, practicing gratitude, training our brains to remember, to be thankful for something, we develop a habit. We developed an instinct. So we no longer have to say, okay, I'm going to make myself think positive. It starts to happen automatically. And people that have been practicing mindfulness for a long time will talk about that. They will talk about now they feel themselves gravitate towards the positive in any situation. And talk about a stress reliever. You know, whatever the situation you walk into, if you're able to say, how's the glass half full? It'll help relieve stress for anyone. Okay, neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is really something that will help your students understand why they do this. I've shared this with adults and students both. It's been very well received, and I think it's 2 minutes long, and I think it gives you a very clear understanding of how mindfulness really benefits everybody.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, There are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well traveled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep traveling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
So is that something you think your faculty or students or parents might be interested to see? Does it make sense to you about how practice can help to create new habits, new instincts, new reactions? A lot of students will ask questions about, okay, so if I'm going to practice mindfulness, then that means when I'm in an intense situation, I have to stop, I have to think, I have to pick a reaction. And I'm not going to do that. No, nobody's going to do that. This is an instantaneous action. With practice, as that yellow line got bigger and bigger, you notice the white line got smaller and smaller. So when you have students say, I can't help it, I always react that way, or it's just the way I am. Well, it's not just the way you are. If you don't want to be the person that reacts quickly or acts first and thinks second, by practicing mindfulness and actually allowing your body to detach from your stress center, which is what happens when we were doing what Rosie was doing with us, our breathing, you can actually begin new pathways. So when you're in a stressful situation, it automatically happens. You automatically pause before you react. And these are the exercises that are so exciting to see. I had a student tell me that, who's practicing mindfulness, say that before, he's an athlete, and on the basketball court, he found that he was worrying about, if the ball comes, I'll drop it. If the person I'm guarding gets past, he'll get the shot. And so instead of being aware of what's happening right now, his mind is, what if I drop the ball? What if I miss the shot? What if my person makes the shot? You know, the what ifs. And so his performance wasn't anywhere near to what he thought it could be. After practicing mindfulness, and this does not happen overnight. I don't mean to say that this is a magic experience, that you do it once or twice and then you're all better and you go off and live a perfect life. It's a skill, and any other skill that you've developed, you've worked at, and you've practiced it, and you've gotten better at it. And he is finding that on the basketball court now, he's able to, oh, I'm so sorry. I was hitting the thing and didn't know it. I know. Now on the basketball court, what he's doing is he's focusing on the ball. Where is it? Here it comes. You know, like he's in the moment, as opposed to being in the next moment where he's not as effective. So it really can become part of your instincts or your reaction. So when somebody says, I've just always been that way, or I can't change it, yes you can. Yes you can, with enough experience and opportunity for practice. Rosie mentioned that what we do at McLean is first we educate our students, so we're giving them this kind of information. Then we train them in the breathing exercises, in the visualizations, in the body scans, which you're going to see the teachers demonstrate. And then we give them the opportunity to practice. And that's where those changes really begin to happen. The prefrontal cortex, you know, we talk a lot about executive functioning. And people talk about how executive function seems to be becoming more and more of a problem with students. And more students seem to have executive functioning. And I don't know about many adults in this room, but I'll sign up first for, you know, the person with executive functioning and how all of this becomes an issue. Our level of stress is higher than it's ever been, and our ability to focus on one thing is very, very limited. And most of us believe that we're very good at multitasking, when the reality is our brain's not able to multitask. So by practicing mindfulness, we are able to use this part of the brain that actually strengthens the things that we want in terms of the prefrontal cortex. So we're talking about strengthening focus ability, memory, time management, organization, integrate past experience with present action, behavior regulations, and metacognition. These are the things that we are able to strengthen by quieting our amygdala. By quieting our sense of fight or flight, these things get stronger. The gray matter literally gets thicker. The impact of mindfulness on student health. We can say that, you know, we all want good habits. We all want to be better at planning, better at all those other things. But the bottom line is we are teaching the whole child, right? So we're teaching them to be good people and be good students, but they've got a lot that they're dealing with outside of the classroom that we can also help them with. The impact of stress, anxiety, depression, and sleep deprivation on our students often is what's keeping them from being able to be as successful as they would like to be. If we look at stress, the smaller amygdala decreases the impact of stress. We can't take stress away. We can't take traffic away. We can't take boyfriends away. We can't take all those stressors away. But by helping our students learn how to practice mindfulness, how to breathe, how to quiet their amygdala, that stress, that impact on them is going to be much less. Depression. Depression is a huge concern in every school. And unfortunately, what we know is about 20% of teens will experience teen depression before they reach adulthood. This isn't sadness. This is depression that interferes with everyday life events, life choices. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24. That is a very concerning statistic. Second leading cause of death. More teenagers and young adults die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung disease combined. So our students are very susceptible to this response of depression, to the life they're leading. The risk of depression is higher in girls than in boys. Not that boys don't have it, because we know they do, but girls are at a higher risk. So mindfulness increases feelings of empathy. Back to our hippocampus. Empathy, compassion, self-worth, and personal value. And these are all protective factors against depression. One of the activities that a lot of mental health programs utilize for people experiencing depression is community service. Take care of someone else. That helps to build my sense of self-value, my sense of compassion. And what is happening is that you're using that hippocampus. But if your amygdala is screaming with all the stress that you're feeling or with all the emotion that you're under, that can't happen. So we can affect depression by quieting the amygdala, increasing the use of the hippocampus, and building empathy, compassion, self-worth, and personal value. Anxiety. Who doesn't experience anxiety? A national survey of adolescent mental health issues reported that about 8% of teenagers, ages 13 to 18, have a diagnosed anxiety disorder with symptoms commonly emerging around the age of 6. So when you hear someone in a lower school say, well, we'll put that in the high school, we don't need it in the lower school. Oh yeah, we do. Our children that young are beginning to feel that feeling that they can't name. Sometimes they say, my tummy hurts. It's anxiety about all the different stress they're under. Mindfulness, however, of these teens, only 18% received mental health care. So where are the other 82%? They're in our classrooms. They're in our school. They're looking for help, but they don't know how to ask for it. Mindfulness breathing lowers the heart rate, it improves circulation, and it quiets the what-ifs thoughts. If you've ever worked with somebody with anxiety, one of the things they say haunts them, what if? You know, I get on an elevator and all I can think of is, what if it what if it stops? What if it crashes? What if the doors don't open? What if? And the what ifs get bigger and bigger and bigger. And a lot of mental health treatment is about helping the person lower the what ifs. Mindfulness helps to quiet the what ifs so that the anxiety doesn't win, so the anxiety doesn't override the prefrontal cortex. Lack of sleep. Every day in the paper there's something new about. Now it's the blue light from all the electronics, right? The iPads, the computers. They're saying now we shouldn't be on those for at least an hour before we go to bed, because that stimulus affects our ability to go to sleep. School districts, Montgomery County just made a change in their starting times for high school so that students can get more sleep. Other school districts are also doing the same, looking at issues related to sleep. A lot of doctors are looking at the impact of lack of sleep on some of our major diseases and the increase in their prevalence. Okay, lack of sleep, what does it do? It limits my ability to learn, to listen, to concentrate, and to solve problems. So when you've got students coming to school tired, they're really not being obstinate, they're being tired. They forget important information, names, numbers, homework. Aggressive or inappropriate behavior. You know, all the bullying programs that are out now. Why are we having all of these programs? Parents are saying it was never this bad when I was in school. We have a lot of sleep-deprived students. And not to mention adults with the road rage that we have going on. I mean, some of these stories now are like you almost can't believe them. They're so outrageous. These are tired people, and they don't have, their amygdalas are in charge, their prefrontal cortex isn't available, and their rational thinking is gone. So they do very aggressive and inappropriate things, and they don't know why. Overeating or eating unhealthy foods. What's one of the leading health concerns now in our country? Diabetes brought on by obesity. So, by lack of sleep, I'm eating sugar, fat, salt, high sugar, high fat, high salt. And do you know what sugar, fat, and salt do to your taste buds? Stimulate them. They send the message of more, we want more, give me more, instead of, that was very satisfying, I can move on now. No, 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 no. This is why a lot of the fast foods are full of sugar, fat, and salt, because they are appetite stimulators. And so when I'm tired, I reach for those things because of the immediate blood glucose rise, but also I keep eating. I don't stop at 2 or 3. I got to finish the box. Heightens the effects of alcohol, increases use of caffeine and nicotine, and lowers resistance to other illnesses. So sleep is really important, and we know with mindfulness, it improves the ability to fall asleep, to stay asleep, and to reach, sorry about 2 C's, to reach a deeper rapid eye movement sleep state, which is the state where you get re-energized. So sleep is very responsive to mindfulness, and I know a lot of students who do the body scan, which Heavenly, one of our teachers, will demonstrate for you. They do the body scan at night in bed, because by the time they get all the way up, they're asleep. I know other students, I know women, several women I know that wake up in the middle of the night. Seems to be a problem for some of us, that this is what puts them back to sleep and allows them to sleep until the alarm goes off. A lot of women struggle with waking up multiple times during the night. This has been helpful in women being able to go to sleep and stay asleep. Even if they awake, they're able to get themselves back to sleep and stay asleep till the alarm goes off. Who else is doing mindfulness? It can't be that good, right? It can't be that effective. The Marines, the Navy SEALs, Special Forces. Do you think they have high stress? Do you think their amygdala is screaming? So they are actually using this to help them. Athletes, Derek Jeter, Michael Jordan, they are both proponents of mindfulness. Healthcare providers. I put cancer and arthritis there just because I wanted one disease that is curable. And when people have a curable disease, such as cancer, mindfulness has shown to bring them into remission sooner. They stay in remission longer, and they have less percentage of people that have a reoccurrence. So that's a curable illness that mindfulness has proven effective for. Remember the stress? It decreases the impact of stress on your body, and anyone that's been through cancer treatment with a loved one or yourself know that one of the first things doctors talk about is reduce your stress. And arthritis is it's a chronic condition. This is something that I can't fix with medication, but mindfulness can help. It helps to reduce pain. It helps to reduce inability to sleep, which is very detrimental for someone with arthritis. Actors, I can't pronounce her name, but she was in 12 Years a Slave. She was the Academy Award-winning actress. She practices mindfulness. Now that movie, her role, it makes sense to me that she would need mindfulness to get through that role. So that's an actress that practices, and it's taught as a class at Juilliard. Mindfulness is taught as a class at Juilliard. Veterans, post-traumatic stress disorder. It's now becoming one of the leading treatments for post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's not just that veterans are brought in and do it as a group. Their families are brought in, and everyone's taught how to do it, and so they can practice it at home. So it can become part of their daily routine. All addiction treatment programs talk about mindfulness. When you think about someone that's addicted, that impulsive choice, right? They've been sober for 20 years and they're sitting at a bar or they're sitting at a wedding or something happens and it's an impulsive response to use that substance again. If you think about the ability to control impulses with mindfulness, it makes sense that it would help with addiction treatment as well. So that's who's doing it. That's why they're doing it. And we hope you'll do it too. So that's my presentation on neuroscience. And I'd be interested in feedback from you.
Oh, right now.
Right now.
Frank, did you say that we would have access to this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
So when you were talking about using the body scan for getting back to sleep at night, just to pass along, John Kabat-Zinn has a CD that you can buy. I've gotten it on Amazon, and it's a full body scan, and that's what I have used, and it's amazing. Just exactly for that.
Great.
He's the, just to mention, he's the not the founder, but the person who kind of started the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Is it already referenced here somewhere?
Not
his, but you can easily find it.
Yeah.
Just say the last name.
Zinn.
John is J-O-N, Cabot is K-A-B-A-T.
I think it's C-A-B-O-T.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Vin, but you can also, Mindful
Zinn with
School's
the Z.
website is on there. Mindful Schools has, I'm sure they have it, so you
Is
can
that
find
full catastrophe living? Is that the book?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good book.
It's amazing.
The book's called Full Catastrophe Living.
Yeah, and it has a CD that you can get to go along with it.
Yes.
When you talk about rewiring the brain, it reminds me a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, which I guess is really just a more intense version of mindfulness. I mean, the studies have shown significant changes in areas of activity within the brain for individuals that have particular types of anxiety if they go through cognitive behavioral therapy. So would you consider mindfulness to be really like a daily version of cognitive behavioral therapy? I mean, it seems like it's very, very similar to cognitive behavioral therapy, and maybe cognitive behavioral therapy is just too big of a mouthful for us to, just your thoughts on that.
I did see it compared when I was preparing this, and we have a therapist behind you who wants to speak about that.
No, I am a cognitive behavioral therapist. And the way that they interplay is what I'm actually really interested in, because it's really different. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps you to think thoughts that then produce positive feelings.
Right.
So you're practicing, you're taking the thoughts you have now, and you're testing them to see if there's evidence that they are true, and then you are rethinking them so that they are, for instance, if you think you have an ugly face if you're a teenage girl, and you use cognitive therapy and you start to think that you have a distinctive face or an unusual face or a striking, you rethink it. Okay, like I had a girl that I worked with that she didn't like the shape of her face, and she started thinking she had a unique face. When she practiced that, she felt more comfortable every time she even looked in the mirror because she practiced the thought. And what I don't understand about mindfulness, which I want to know, is that when you get into a very deep, relaxed state, is that a good time to practice some of these more positive thoughts? So like for a student that's struggling, who thinks, I'm not smart, like your typical thing, I'm not as smart as the other kids in my class. And let's say you work on that in a cognitive way, so they think, I'm a creative thinker, I have some interesting ways of approaching school, or you try to reframe. Is that something you would practice?
Well, what you don't want to do is you don't want to instruct the thoughts during mindfulness. Okay, when I'm practicing mindfulness, my thoughts are, I'm trying to clear my mind and focus on my feelings and not use judgment. So when you have a student who's practicing cognitive behavioral therapy, they have a very clear path of expectation for that exercise.
Right.
When you're practicing mindfulness, you are detaching from expectations. You're detaching from judgment. You're detaching from thoughts that create positive or negative. But what you're doing is you're actually going inside of yourself and focusing on what you're feeling. So mindfulness is more about being aware of how I'm feeling and how that and supporting that feeling through repetition of breathing or the body scan, or because the judgment is something that can be problematic in people meditating if they have a judgmental thought.
That really does clarify, because I think in cognitive behavioral therapy, like you're getting help from a professional to realize that some feeling that you've been stuck on, you usually have some kind of thing that you say to yourself,
Right.
like that gets you past it. So that actually really clarifies that I think cognitive behavior, you're actually really, you've got some phrase to kind of retrain the brain, where I think that's the thing that's so hard about mindfulness though, is like when I stop thinking like, man, I'm already thinking about like planning dinner and lunch and like, I mean, that's the thing, the hard part is that that
you go back so quickly.
That the brain jumps so quickly to like something other than how you're feeling.
And
you have a minute to think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what I've heard a mindfulness instructor say before is when your mind jumps, you say, my mind jumped. Like, it's not a bad thing, okay? It is what it is. It's that's kind of the expression for mindfulness, really. It is what it is. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. So my mind jumped, and now I'm going to come back to my breathing. Or my anchor words. Some people have words that they use, which I think some of the teachers will talk about, which brings them back to that experience of I'm focusing on myself. For some people, it's just come back to your breathing. And so with mindfulness, you are not passing judgment on yourself or anyone else or anything else. And sometimes that's a practice in and that can be hard to do. It is what it is. I saw a teacher respond to a student in a mindfulness class when the student was a little bit aggressive, and this is so boring. And the teachers in the room were like, oh goodness, here we go. And the mindfulness teacher said, I can see why you would say that. I can see as a junior in high school, when you've got SATs or when you've got papers due or when you're taking an AP class, this would seem boring to you. But what I would like to ask of you is that you just try being open for a few more minutes. There was no judgment. There was no, even in her voice, the acceptance. And that's another thing about mindfulness, is that we accept it is what it is. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And that is sometimes hard to do, but that is what's going to create the experience of new access to our hippocampus. Did you have a question? I think you had.
It wasn't a question. It was the interface between the discussions that we're having, in that it feels to me like the mindfulness can make you available to the cognitive therapy, as so they could work in tandem to be able to calm yourself. Because I feel like when I've talked to, say, my daughter, who says I'm not thin enough, I'm not skinny enough, and I say, well, try and think some positive thoughts. I mean, you can't go, it's hard to go right to the thinking positive thoughts when you've had so many negative thoughts. But it sounds like getting the mindfulness training can make you more available to work in the way that the therapist is talking about.
Exactly.
So I see them working together.
That's a very good explanation. I'm not looking for hands. I'm just suggesting that gratitude journals are one of the best things we can do with students. If we can help them see the benefit of a gratitude journal, if you do one once a week or once a day, they start their class that way, their homeroom, you know, and they might start out with the same 3 things every day. But with time, over time, they'll start to get it. And even if it's just those 3 things, that's 3 minutes or 3 seconds of being positive that they weren't doing yesterday. And unfortunately, we are not, as human beings, drawn to the positive. It just naturally, we just don't naturally go there. We have to choose to go there. So we need to create for ourselves a positive thought. We need to be drawn to the positive. The 5 negatives to 1 positive is what most people experience on a daily basis, a minimum. So if we can help our brains get to the point of feeling how nice it is to be positive, then we're more attracted to that experience, the snowball. The thought creates a feeling, the feeling creates a thought. Yes?
I really like what you said about commitment, and then the 2-minute snippet on YouTube, and kind of what you were saying. I've done art therapy with people in recovery and from substance abuse, and it's interesting because it's pretty simple. You know, they haven't necessarily, it's the ones who show up or who rewire their brain or who don't necessarily work a perfect program, but just kind of be the consistency of taking the path. It's very basic, and it's very inspiring to see the ones where it doesn't work out, the ones where it does. And so I like that, just simplifying it. I don't know anything about cognitive therapy, but you know, just keeping it simple and commitment and gratitude and just those basic things over and over again. You know, that I like what you said. And the other thing regarding the basketball player and focusing, I'm an artist. I was an artist first before I was an art teacher, and then I'm a horse person. And sometimes I don't know how I get from A to Z. You know, when I finish something, and it's great. And if I overthink it, I can really muddy the process. And like years ago, I was a teenager taking a riding lesson, and we had this really fantastic guy come out who was famous, and he laid a tape measure out, and he said, "Here's your spot you're going to jump from." And I couldn't all of a sudden I couldn't find the spot to save my life. And it's the same going through a painting, especially when I'm doing commission work and it has to be sold, and then all of a sudden if I think about it, if I get out of the moment and I get to I mean, that really resonated with me. So that was just kind of on a personal note. But anyway, thanks.
Good.
Great information.
Good. I know it's time to move on to the next section. Does anyone have a closing comment before we move on? And we will revisit this, I'm sure.
Yeah, just one thing about positive affirmations. We do some little phrases that we say in the classroom. I teach pre-K, and so we say it as a group. At the end of the day, we hold our bags and softly say, "Thank you for a lovely day," and everybody says it together. And if I forget, they want to say that. And then there's another one that I read that was, "May I be safe, may I be well, may I be at peace. May you be safe, may you be well, may you be at peace. May they be safe, may they be well, may they be at peace." And we say that as we, you know, and I reference them to, you know, the ambulance that you might hear going by, and hope that everybody's safe, and you know, so there's a well-wishing that goes out.
And that experience creates positive feelings, and those feelings will hopefully, you know, keep happening so that the cycle continues. Thoughts create feelings, feelings create thoughts. So the more that we can provide that opportunity for our students, the more of a gift we're giving them.
Before we
Well, I'll stop.
The gratitude thing that we're talking about, does anybody have a suggestion for older high school kids with this? Because they tend to think everything is kind of hokey, and I think that there would be a lot of sort of giggling and eye rolling. And I just wondered if anyone had any kind of a gratitude exercise that, or this kind of thing for older kids that you recommend?
They have apps that you can download that, and so you can kind of maybe get the students plugged in with, you know, they can do it on their phone.
Right.
There's an app called Happy where you can set an alarm every day at that time, and you record like 3 good things about that day. Or I've heard of like jars where they will write something down and put it in the jar, and then kind of like throughout the year, if you're having a tough day, you can go back to that jar where you put your positive experiences. And so just kind of remind yourself of those things when you're in a negative space.
I also think having students that have benefited from any of the things you're suggesting, sharing that with their peers can also be helpful. Coming from, you know, their peers, it carries a little more weight. So if you have a student that's got the app and is finding it helpful, if they're open to sharing it with other people, that can help too. I love the idea of the app.
I have a friend who does it from her family, but you can also do it in your classroom. You just have a journal that's open to anybody where you can only write something positive, and it's something that anybody can go to at any time and either look to or add a line to. And it's just there. It becomes part of the room.
Sitting in the classroom.
Sitting in the classroom.
A lot of teachers will use some kind of writing exercise really quick at the beginning of class to kind of prime your brain about whatever the topic is. And I teach a psych class to the upper school, and if you can easily do that in a way that makes them think of something positive in their life that relates to what you're going to talk about. If you think about it that way. I mean, if I'm going to do a lesson on language development, then I can have them write something about how their mom taught them how to talk, or something like that, that creates kind of a positive image, and it takes 2 seconds, and it's academic in some way, but it also frames that. And before a quiz or something, I'll have them write down something that's positive, somehow related to what the topic is.
Well, we know the fastest way to quiet the amygdala is with breathing. So before a test, if it became just habit in your room, before we begin the test, everyone, you know, we're going to take 3 really deep breaths or 4 really deep breaths. If that just became an expectation that your students had, that it was part of the test, you know, it was part of the test that you had to do this. The question, or the first thing on the test is to close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. That right there could set them up for success, more so than them sitting there worrying about if they're going to be able to recall what they studied the night before, because now their hippocampus has been overrun by the amygdala. So they're right. They're not going to be able to remember, because the more anxious they get, the louder it gets. So that's just another example of how we can incorporate this in every aspect of a classroom. How you start it, how you end it, integrating it into lessons, integrating it into content. And I really believe that you are the ones that are going to make the difference, because having watched teachers do this, the ones that are integrating it so well, their students are thriving. They want it. They're asking for it. And so I really believe it's going to come from you. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I went over.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, I just wanted to say, I think that's one of the kind of puzzles of mindfulness is that it is inherently not goal-oriented, right? So you're not, you know, we do it because there is research, there's a positive outcome and that sort of thing, but each time you sit, if you attach goals to that, it's not mindfulness. And it's very, I mean, it's countercultural, it's counterintuitive.
Very countercultural.
And so even a gratitude journal or something like that, which, you know, we have so many things practices that we do that may seem compatible with mindfulness, but isn't mindfulness in its strict sense, because you really have to just be. And you can't have a loop running through, you can't chant, you know, I mean, it's that non-judgmental, watching your feelings, watching your thoughts come and go or float across the screen, you know, that is awareness. And I don't know, what puzzles me ultimately is this relationship between mindfulness and all the benefits, and how to practice it without leashing it to a goal-oriented agenda.
And I think that's what keeps a lot of people away from it, because it doesn't fit our mold. You know, we've been raised to be very productive, to be able to measure success, to be able to have markers, right? And there are none.
Right.
You know, there aren't. You do this practice as long as you want to do the practice, as long as you feel it's something that's benefiting. There's no right, there's no wrong in terms of longevity.
To also respond to that a little bit, I think that's also where the consistency and just keep showing up is important, because if you have goals attached to it when you start, but you just keep showing up, then it becomes habitual, and then the goals can fade away with the practice. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I know that you talk about multitasking in our lives, and we're all multitaskers. We almost have to be. And I find I am really a notorious multitasker. I'm not even that good at it, but I try to do it. But with the mindfulness, and I found that just to kind of review what we've discussed here today and kind of move forward in terms of what you can do in the classroom and how you can, practice it in the classroom. We'll do another little activity. It seems to me my practice is still evolving, but it seems to me what it's helped me do, and hopefully help my students do, is we are goal oriented. We are, trying to get somewhere, or do something, or accomplish something. But that's not what mindfulness takes us away from that, and that's not a bad thing, because when we become so overtaken by what we're trying to accomplish, we lose sight of our as Frankie so eloquently said in all her presentations, we're not healthy. We're not well, really, because we're creating these anxieties and these stresses on ourselves because we're trying to get someplace. And mindfulness helps us stop and just take a moment and take some breaths and just be aware of where we are in the moment. And it helps us kind of reboot and think about, our day, our experience, maybe some bad things have happened to us, whether it be in the car or with a spouse or a child at the breakfast table as our day started maybe not so great. But it helps us kind of just reboot and start again and get ourselves back into that positive place. So I think it's really important. It's kind of hearing this today, how it can help us get out of those kind of places we end up being in that are not so great. So if we can share that with our students and help them do the same thing, as Frankie shared, with all the things they have facing them today. I think kids today, they have so much that they have to deal with. And if we can take them out of that spot for just a moment or 2 moments or 3 moments in their classrooms and in their school environment, maybe they can carry that over to other parts of their lives. And you'll see in a minute, we're going to show a little video of Walter English, who's a student here, who was on, we had an NBC came and talked to us a little bit about it, and they interviewed him, and he's the athlete that I think Frankie was referring to. And as a high school student, how it's really caught on with him, and it's helped him in all phases of his life. So I think we have to remember that in terms of what mindfulness really is, and it is countercultural. 2 years ago, I didn't know what it was. I did some yoga for a while, and I did some different things. But once I started practicing the mindfulness and stopping for the moment, even in the middle of my day, I found the value. It helped me just become, again, start my day over again, get myself into a positive spot. And if we can do that for our students, I think it's really something we can give them that they can find valuable. And I said one of the benefits, as we listed on the first page, it really can become a lifetime skill. We can give this to them, and they can, what we found here at school, they will go home and they will tell their parents what they did in school. We have a lot of literature, a lot of things on our website about mindfulness. Everybody's aware of the fact that we're doing it, we're practicing it, we're educating the community in it. But when your child comes home and talks about doing it in school, even the little ones, they'll come home and say, I did mindfulness today. And the parents ask, what's mindfulness? We had such a curiosity about it that at the end of last year, the Parent Association said, can we do a little workshop for parents on mindfulness? So we did. In the fall, we had a 6-week Tuesday morning. Parents would come in, just drop off their child, come in and just spend 20 minutes. That was it, 20 minutes. They sat here, right here in this library, and we had different teachers come in, as you'll see today, share the different aspects of mindfulness. And there weren't that many. I mean, there was, we got about 20, 25, whatever it was. But some of them came regularly. And by the end of the 6 weeks, in fact, I saw a lady yesterday who came, and she said, well, are you going to do that again? But they came in from their busy morning and starting their day, and we talked about, sharing this with their students, what they're doing at home, and making that, connection with parent and student. And it was really, I thought it was really powerful. And they came away really feeling like they'd learned something. And then some of them have even taken it on and made it. They've talked to them later, and they, I'm really I think about that once in a while. So it's just kind of, again, tip of the iceberg. But if we can, educate ourselves and educate our community, I think it's. I think we certainly find value in it. In terms of the gratefulness, one person on your program in the next page after the break, we're going to have some of the teachers come in. Mary Catherine Netherton is our kindergarten teacher, and is just reflecting on what you said about what you do with the little ones. She couldn't be here today. She had a death in the family, so she was unexpectedly called away. But she said to me, she said, please tell them that what I do, and she demonstrated that. She was part of the parent workshop. She demonstrated some of the things and talked about some of the things she does. She said, one thing we do every day is share. Tell me one thing you're grateful for from today. And they cannot leave the room for dismissal until they tell me one thing they're grateful for. Okay, these are little ones. And she says, I like it because we leave on a positive note from the classroom. And she said, now we're to the point that the kids, they'll leave the room and they'll, without even prompting, this is what I'm grateful for today. And they're just verbalizing it as they go out the door to go wherever they're going. She doesn't even have to ask them. So that's where we really want to go, where these little ones, and she does mindfulness in her classroom pretty much every day. We've had several schools visit here at McLean, and some will continue to visit us, groups of teachers who come. And I always make sure that they see Mary Catherine, because she, you think these little ones can't do it, or and it is, they're squirrely. I mean, they're all over the place sometimes. But she's doing it every day with them. And she's really committed to it. She's been trained. But it's more than that. It's something she believes in and she has her heart in, and she does it every day with them. So, and we can't, like I think Frankie mentioned, they're too little to learn it. It's not going to, what stresses do they have? What anxieties do they have? Well, we all know they have many, many burdens on their little lives, even at a young age. So I just wanted to share that with you since she won't be coming in today.
Can I tell a kindergarten story?
Absolutely.
One of my jobs under community wellness is the buses, and helping to make sure the buses are safe. And sometimes, and in particular this year, we had one kindergarten student who could not get the concept of sitting down on the bus. So they're up and down the aisle, and so it was a struggle. I mean, we were really working with this student. Now, he is in Mary Catherine's class. Come around December, January, I said to her, I'm not getting any more calls about him on the bus. Is he not in your class? Is he not here? Where is he? She goes, I don't know. But in class, it's the same thing. He's self-regulating. He's much better at self-regulating. And I attribute that to her mindfulness class, the fact that she does it every single day. He now gets on the bus and he either chooses to take a nap, which he wasn't choosing to do in the past, or he'll pull out something to read. Now, it's not every day. We're not perfect. But certainly an enormous shift in his ability to self-regulate, which I really give Mary Catherine credit for, because I think she's really taught him how to feel. He feels his own body and he knows what to do. So that's just a testimony.
Yeah. It's really been fun. I go into some of the classrooms too in lower school. I teach middle school. I teach 5th grade math, and I teach 5th and 6th grade math labs. So I have a lot of opportunities to go in the classrooms and do my little mindful thing. And when they see me coming, I've been here, I don't know how many years, I've been here a long time, and I've done a lot of teaching and a lot of kids over the years. When they see me coming, there's Ms. Wall, we're going to do mindfulness before we start. So they're ready for me. They know I'm going to do it. One class I go to on Friday mornings, it's not a class, it's not a lesson I do pre-lesson, a moment. I do an actual lesson with them, and we explore some of these websites and we look at some of these things we've talked about today with them, and they're 6th graders. And again, they're not the easiest audience. In this particular class is a little bit challenging. The teacher of the class, he's not been trained, so he observes me do the lesson. And it's so edifying for me to see all these weeks I've gone in there. Now I go in and they get in their positions and they kind of focus on me a little bit. And they're starting to feel the benefit of it themselves. So, and you got these middle school age boys, they're all, they're mouthing off and they're this and that, and we know how that can be. But I just do my thing. I said, we're going to do it today. I ignore whatever the comments are. And they will get on each other. And they will say, Ms. Wallace, we're doing, quiet. I got to, So this is what it can lead to. And even in, Frankie, the gal who introduced us to mindfulness, Dr. A, she now works in high school. And she has been trained, she's been certified through mindful schools. And she's working with low-income, kids from low-income backgrounds and challenged in many, many ways. And she is working with them in these schools, and she's making these connections with these kids. So I think everybody can benefit from it, and if it's approached the right way. If you are coming from it, you're coming to it from in the right place. We had a lot of teachers trained last March, and some of them, I'll be honest with you, they were trained and they got the training and they went through the process. And I'm not sure they're as committed to it as they could be with their students. They do it, they do their minute. But a student will know if that teacher is really committed to this exercise. And they will see, kids know, they have instincts and they sense what's real and what's not real. So as real as you can make it and as committed as you can be, that resonates with the student. And I've seen that, and it's really that's what's kept me going on this journey. What I get back from this, even in a minute, even in 90 seconds, what I see happening with my students is really just makes me feel like this is something I really feel good about, and I see the benefits that the students are receiving from it. And in terms of the journals and things, there's lots of things you can do with your students with gratefulness. See, all these themes, if you see on the first page of the program, along with the exercises we're going to do another one in a minute, you can incorporate these themes into the exercise. So today we're going to talk about heartfulness. What's heartfulness? Well, let's send each other a good thought, a good vibe. I'm going to have a good thought about my friend next to me, and I'm going to send a good thought to her. And sometimes with the older kids, they're not buying into this too much, but I've seen it done with third and fourth graders. And they'll sit and they'll close their eyes. During the mindfulness session of the few minutes, they're sending a good thought to somebody next to them. That's called heartfulness, okay. The gratefulness piece, we've talked about that one. The empathy piece. Because basically what we want to do is, what happened with this kindergartner on the bus, we want them to take that out of the classroom and use it in their relationships with others. Because if they're starting to feel the empathy for someone or the understanding of someone, or maybe someone's in a bad place today, then it'll affect their relationships with each other. And that's really, again, the ongoing goal is to have mindfulness be so much a part of them through this training and through the exercises that we do, that they'll have stop and think before you have a stimulus and a response, and there's a space between that. In fact, there's a Viktor Frankl quote in your folder that Heather Carvel, our high school teacher, will talk about when she comes over a little later on. And if we can get them to that point where they're thinking between that space of the stimulus and response, she'll talk about it a lot better than I can. But if we can think, and we all can do it, we all can think about our reaction. How many times do we react to things just like that, impulsively? We react to something. So these are the little steps we want to take as we think about starting our own practice, working with our students, and the stuff, what you get back. And any of you have done it in your classrooms, and some of you have, and you've practiced it. Hopefully you've had the same feelings that I've had in terms of the payback you get when you actually do it with your students in a consistent, heartful manner, and in a way that is showing a commitment to it, because it's a real thing. It has real benefits, and I think if we can share that with our kids, we're really it'll really, it's just really important, I think, in education especially. So so let's see. Okay, when do you do it in the classroom? Well, before we go to our next exercise, we'll just talk about this for a second. When do you do it? Well, we all have times in our classrooms where we're going, whoa, it's chaos right now. We may be half through the lesson. We gotta, and we've all done this. I know we've all done it. So we stop. Let's take a moment. Everybody, quiet down. We're going to just gather ourselves back together. Whether it's art teachers, I always admire art teachers because it's structured chaos in there sometimes, and the kids are, because it's an unstructured class, and they're trying to get an activity done or an art piece, constructed. So we have to stop sometimes. So we stop in the middle, and that's great. I typically do it in the beginning of the class, but it doesn't mean I don't do it later. You know, I took a class several years ago called Responsive Classroom. Some of you may be familiar with that. And they gave us these nice chimes. So I had one in my classroom. And I would do it before I even learned anything about mindfulness. So stop in the middle of the class, just everybody just stop what they're doing, and let's start all over again. So that's okay to do too. You know, Mike was in here, talked about doing it. He was a college professor, and the students would bustle into the room. He's told this story many times. Into the classroom after coming with their backpacks and things flying all over. They're coming from another class, or maybe just got out of their car. And he would do that moment, even with at that level of age, when he would do that moment with them. And you may say, oh, it takes so much time. Well, I do it at the beginning, but I lose teaching time. Well, you don't really lose teaching time, because you're gaining back a level of attention you're going to get from them once they've done their 90 seconds or their 2 minutes of quiet with you. You'll gain that back in getting them to be more engaged in the lesson and more available for learning if you've done that exercise at the beginning of the class. And so that's, I found that too. And now, not to say 40, 50-minute class, you're not going to keep them the whole time. Let's face it, it's not going to happen for the whole lesson. But if you start out that way with the consistent moment every day, and then in the middle of class, if it does become chaotic, you do it again. And you can just reboot everybody again. And they're used to this. You'll see a little video at the end of these little ones. Since you won't be able to go to any of our classrooms today and see it, there's something at the end that we're going to show at the end of these little ones doing the breathing and demonstrating in a little classroom of teachers again practicing the exercise with them. So how you want to do it depends on the dynamics of your class, the chemistry that you got going with your students, your comfort level with it, and there's a comfort level too. That's a piece of it too that you have to think about. What are you comfortable doing? You know, maybe you're not comfortable sitting quietly with your eyes closed. I do keep my eyes closed, but sometimes I have one eye open to make sure they're all sitting at their desk. But it's what you're comfortable with, and as you go through your practice and you develop your own practice, if you haven't already started, then you'll become comfortable with it, and it'll just come. To me, it just comes as second nature, and it's something that you have to cultivate for what works for you and what works with your kids and with your age group of kids. Okay, does that all make sense? Okay, I hope so. Yes?
Just a quick question. When you talk about your practice, and I'm curious if what you do in the classroom as a teacher leader suffices for you as your practice, or if that one eye kind of cracked, I mean, really, you're on duty.
Right.
So have you taken this kind of educational inquiry and applied it to your own life?
Yes.
In a, every morning kind of
I try.
way?
I try. I mean, I really, I need to get better at that. We all need to get better at finding ways to incorporate it into their lives. But I have tried to make it a part of my life. And Frankie talked about the sleep part, and that is so key, because you can, and we'll do a body scan in a minute. Heavenly Hicks is coming in. She'll do it with you also, but I want to do a little bit of that with you. Going through your body and just thinking about the different parts of your body. How are you feeling from the top of your head down to your toes? And it's a way to kind of just do a body check is almost what it is. But yes, I'll be honest. It's hard. It's hard. We're all busy. It's hard to get. Even you say to yourself, God, can't you find 5 minutes? But that's where I'll confess. I'm a multitasker. I like to get a lot of things done. I have a lot of things going on. Independent teacher, school teacher. We have many jobs, don't we? I can't say that I do one job. We all do many jobs. There's a lot of things we need to accomplish during the day. Then I leave here, and you have your second life outside of school, and there's things going on there. So, but you have to stop and say, just like you do with your kids, where you're saying, I'm going to commit to this every day in my classroom. You got to commit to it every day personally in your own practice. And you have to just stop and say, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes or 5 minutes. There's an app I have called Headspace that I got onto. Some of you may have heard of it. And it starts with 15 minutes and goes up to 20 minutes. And that's a lot of time. You don't think that's much time? That's a lot of time. But when I get through doing it, after I've done it, then I feel like, wow, this is really, and it's helped me. What I'm learning on that, I share with my students. So the more you practice on your own and learn more about your own practice, you can share that with your students, because what's working for you as an adult, little vignettes and stuff that they throw in there, like we talk about positive things that you can talk about. Like it's one of the things they said in one of the Headspace things I listened to, it says, you know, you wake up and the day is nice and sunny, everything's going well, everything's fine, and then a cloud comes over and something happens. Not in your day, maybe in your life. And a cloud comes. And what you have to think about, and this is so key, and because I have a lot of anxieties that I've struggled with over the years, the key is the sunny skies will come back. They'll come back. So you have to weather the storm of the hurricane through your mindfulness or however you're going to weather, because it's going to come back. And that's where where you're in the moment, practicing your moment of mindfulness with your breathing and dispelling your thoughts, just kind of trying to put the thoughts aside and live yourself in that moment of awareness, of your self-awareness that helps you get through that time when it's going to be sunny skies again. Although sometimes we have bigger challenges than the sun's not going to shine necessarily right away, but to be thinking positively that things will get better. Things will, that conflict will be resolved. Maybe you've had a death in the family that you're trying to struggle with. Maybe there's some unexpected challenge you've had in your job or something like that. But just to think that it's going to get better. And we can say that with the kids too. Another one they have you're sitting on the side of the road and you're watching the traffic go by and they have a little cartoon. So you should stay on the side of the road. Sit and watch the traffic go by. And these are your thoughts. These are thoughts running through your mind as you're doing your mindful moment or you're in your mindful place. So you're sitting there. As soon as you start trying to get through the traffic and cross the road, well, then you're in trouble. So the idea is to stay in that moment and not get into the midst of all your thoughts and things right then and there. Just stay on the side of the road until the traffic slows or that you want to get back into your flow of your day. So there's lots of things that you can use as, that connects with kids sometimes, that you can use as kind of little stories or little vignettes that you can share with them to kind of help them get that connection. So, so any questions about that or anything else about that? All right, so we'll do one more exercise. Then I'm going to show you a little clip from some students here who will share their thoughts about mindfulness, and then we'll have a little break. So, okay, so we're going to do another, just a couple of minutes here. Okay, so this time we talked about sound, and I just hear the break. 5 minutes to 10 is when everybody changes classes. There's a lot of activity in the hallway, and when we do our practice in the classrooms, there's always going to be noise. And we say to the kids, there's going to be noise outside the classroom, and that's okay. There's going to be sound, but we're just going to we're going to hear the sounds. We can't make them go away. They're going to be there, but focus again on the breathing. And we'll start with combining the sound piece with the bowl. We'll start off the same way. And let's talk a little bit, just think a little bit about that body scan as you breathe. So you're going to do a little quick, and again, you can do this later. We're just going to do a minute of it now. But just think about another way you can spend that couple of moments in your breathing to think about different parts of your body starting from the top. So I'm going to guide you through it, and we'll do another one later as we go through. So this will be a little bit longer than the minute we did earlier. So we'll start again with getting in our mindful positions. Okay. I'm going to take a couple breaths. I'll start with the bowl again, and then we'll go through thinking as we scan through our body how we're feeling. Okay, we're taking our breaths and we're thinking about the tops of our heads. Scanning down through our forehead and down through our face. Is there any kinds of places of discomfort you might be feeling there today? Continue your breathing. Move down through the back of your head, down to your neck and your shoulders. Are they tense? Kind of relieve a little stress there if they are. Move down again through your back. You're kind of sitting in a rigid position. Is it comfortable? Keep the breath up, thinking about that moment. Just being. Moving a little further down. You're sitting, that sensation of sitting in the chair, thinking about where our arms are. Are we comfortable? Have our hands in a comfortable position. Staying relaxed, but still thinking about those parts that might be uncomfortable or tense, down to our knees where we are sitting in a position, knees are bent, and move on down our legs, finally feeling our toes. Hopefully our shoes are comfortable. Continue our breathing. Staying aware of the moment. Thinking about the sounds outside. Hearing some sounds in school around us, where we are, where we should be. Take a few more breaths. And after the chime, when you're comfortable, you can open your eyes.